All right. So, welcome to another session for Enrolled Agent Part 1. And if we specifically talk about the reimbursement for living expenses. So, first we need to cover the insurance payments, right? Whatever living expenses they have been actually incurred by the taxpayer. So, we are going to have a discussion with respect to the entry cases associated with that. If you particularly talk about the insurance payments which have been actually been received by a taxpayer and whose residence is actually damaged or destroyed, so there may be two major reasons. The taxpayer is either residing in a property which has been completely damaged or destroyed, because of which he starts living in another residence. So in that very particular situation, if he receives any kind of insurance payments from such company with respect to the such damage or destroyed property, so they will not form part of the gross income. Is what they're actually emphasizing on. Along with this includes taxpayers with an undamaged residence who are required not to occupy the home due to a disaster. But at the same time, you need to understand, my dear students, the exclusion is limited to the excess of actual living expenses over normal living expenses. So that means you can claim the limit not to be included in your gross income by your normal living expenses, right? So let's take an example this way. In the same area, if you take any property on rent and it is available at, let's say, $3,000, but as such you are claiming it for $4,000, so will $3,000 will be, as such, not form part of the gross income, or it's the limit which will applicable would be 4,000, 3,000, or 4,000? Please give me the confirmation in the chat box so that I can proceed accordingly further. Give me the confirmation in the chat box. If you want me to repeat the example, I will also do that. Is it clear with respect to the example of 3,000 and $4,000? So that means, in a nutshell, only the normal living expenses limit you can claim. Okay, let me just repeat it. Okay, I just open a file over here. Let me just zoom it. Okay, so let's make an example here. So the example is, we are saying you are an employee. As such, you are a taxpayer and your property has been actually destroyed, right? You are living in a property in, let's say, Glendale, California, and your property is totally destroyed, or maybe some kind of damages are there because of which you cannot live in that place, and the because of which you take another property, it is completely destroyed. Another reason it may be damaged. So you start living in another place for which the rent payable is in the same city only. You start paying as such $4,000 rent. But normally, if you have actually taken a very kind of luxury kind of house, and even you have received insurance payments from here, because the one house which has been destroyed, so you have received the insurance payments over here, and the insurance payments amount to, let's say, uh, as such $3,500. Let's say this is the amount which you have received from the insurance company. On a journal note, it will this $3,500 will form part of the gross income or not? First, answer me this question. Will this payment will form part of the gross income? Yes or no? It will be included in gross income. Give me the confirmation, yes or no. Obviously, the answer is excluded. So that means it will not form part of the gross income. But is there any limit on this? Suppose uh, same area. So the limit it stipulates normal living expenses only. Because here we have discussed whatever amount you are including as such, excluding as a taxpayer, is limited to the excess of actual living expenses over normal living expenses. So that means only the actual living expenses can be excluded. Let's take an example over here. So the limit is, you know, so here is an important catch which you must, as such, which is ought to be discussed over here. And that point is exclusion is limited to the excess of actual living expenses minus normal living expenses. So exclusion will be there by that amount. It is limited to the difference between the two. For example, the normal living expenses, if that amount is, as I was telling you, let's say $3,000 normal living expenses if you live in that some other place in the same city. But at the same time, you have incurred, $3,200. So 3,200 minus $3,000. So what would be the, excess between the two? Actual living expenses over the normal. So what is the amount which is to be excluded? Obviously, the excess, $200. Let's proceed further. Reimbursed employee expenses. Reimbursed employee expenses. What are these reimbursed employee expenses? If the reimbursement equal expenses and the employee makes an accounting of expenses to the employer, the reimbursement are excluded from the employee's gross income. That means, sorry, the reimbursement equal expenses which have been incurred by an employee, and at the same time, this is really essential as to you have maintained a proper record with respect to each and every expense which has been actually incurred by you as an employee, for which complete records are there. So the reimbursement can be taken from employer, and such kind of reimbursements will not form part of the gross income. However, you need to understand the employer may not deduct the expenses accountable plan. What does that mean? Obviously, you can claim the benefit only once, not twice, right? This is what they're stipulating over here. Then this rule also applies if reimbursement exceeding expenses are returned to the employer and the employer substantiates the expenses. That means whatever amount has been reimbursed by the employer to you as an employer, you need to check it out. What is the amount of expenses which has been incurred? And suppose the employer gives you reimbursement of, let's suppose he gives you 4,000, but you have, you know, incurred only 2,500. So what is the difference between the two? $1,500 for which you do not have proper records with respect to the expenses and all. So this amount of $1,500 can be as such. It has to be, returned to the employer by the employer. So what's the golden rule here? Reimbursements minus any expenses which are returned to the employer. So they'll be confined to that. So that means on a higher side, the reimbursements cannot exceed the expenses. Also, let's proceed further with respect to the other provision. Employee housing at an educational institution. Suppose you are an employee of an educational institution, and let's take an example this way for which there is a proper rule. You are an educational institution employee and you are given accidental health center. Sorry, academic. What this term is all about first? Tell me. Academic health center. That means you are an employee and you are staying at the place where your employer is located. You have maybe, traveled over there, and you are given an accommodation because there might be a possibility. You want to give your 100% to the institute, but at the same time, you cannot afford rent also from your salary, because of which you are given as such the option to take the accommodation for staying at educational institution only. First of all, I believe the things are clear to you related to the this point. Now let's take it on another level with the help of an example. There is an educational institution and there is a building over there for which the market value is, let's suppose, 2 lakh dollar, sorry, $220,000. Okay, 5% of the fair market value, that means 5% of 2 lakh is 10,000, right? Then, and you have paid the rent over there, let's suppose 8,000. So the amount is less over here. So that means 10,000 minus 8,000. So 2,000 has to be included in the gross income or not? Tell me. Yes or no? I have, given you another situation. I will repeat the question for you. You have paid rent 8,000 and 5% of the fair market value is 10,000. Then the difference of 2,000 will form part of the gross income or not? No, there you got confused. It will not form part of the gross income. Sorry, it will form part of the gross income. You have mentioned it will not form part of the gross income. It will definitely form part. Why? Because you have, as such, the amount which you have paid is less than this. However, if we change the situation, let's make another example over here. Let's change it. Suppose same, you paid the rent 10,000 and property value is 1,60,000. So 1,60,000 into 5%, that is 8,000. Now balance 2,000. Will it form part of the gross income or not? I have reversed the situation. Now tell me, excluded or included? Excluded or included? Here you need to understand you have paid rent less than the 5% of the fair market value, so obviously excluded. Now you got the concept. The next concept prevails related to the fringe benefits. That means the employer gives you certain kind of additional benefits for which you have actually not rendered any service just because of the fact that you justified your work with discipline and dedication and you are given these benefits. Maybe transportation facility, working condition, no additional cost, or maybe any kind of expense reimbursement. So, will these fringe benefits form part of the gross income? So, the answer is no, will not form part of the gross income. Then comes whatever expenses which we have covered over here above. So, they'll come one by one to discuss all these expenses in a very detailed and comprehensive manner. So, here says no additional cost service. So, that means the value of a no additional cost fringe benefit is provided to the employees, the spouse of the employees, or the independent or the dependent children by employee. What did I say? If you have no additional cost fringe benefit, that means it should not give you any private benefit as an individual, and then you need to check it out. The value of no additional cost fringe benefit provided to the employees, their spouse or dependent children, it will not form part of the gross income, so it will be excluded. The next rule says no additional cost fringe is a service or a product that the employee offers for sale to the customers in the ordinary course of business in which the employer performs substantial services. So that means there will be no additional cost and it will be referred to as additional cost only in a situation for which you are not getting anything in return. For example, if you have registered somewhere as a full time person, then the hiring organization may ponder over as to further give you the benefit and context of it or not. So, what is the, as such crisp of it? That means if you are given any kind of benefits other than cash, that means other than monetary consideration, suppose you are given transport facility, you are given as such employee discount, for example, whatever the product that company is selling, if you buy, so 10% straight away discount you are given. So all these benefits which I have just narrated over here, so they are, tell me whether the expenses of monetary consideration or non-monetary consideration, obviously other than cash or online via bank. So this is non-monetary consideration. So these benefits, and there may be another example, you are given free telephone, okay? So these kind of benefits, if given to all the employees, irrespective of their position, irrespective of any other biasness, then you need to understand here it will not form part of the gross income. However, if you have worked additionally apart from your main appointed duty, you are giving some overtime just and just because of the reason there is an additional project in the company and you have been engaged over there. That's a perfect example. And the employer is quite happy with your work and gives you an option as such to buy the products of that company because there is a flat, 10% heavy discount which is given to the employees as well. And the employer must not incur any substantial additional cost which we have just narrated. For example, while might with the benefit of telephony service and all, but here is an important catch in point number two. The fringe benefits must be available to all employees on non-discriminatory basis. Only then it will not be forming part of the gross income. However, if there is any kind of biasness or so, so in that very particular situation, it will definitely form part of your gross income. Then comes the employee discount. So certain employees, so they offer discounts on the selling price or the selling price of service or as such goods. So what's the main point over here? which is to be given pivotal significance. You need to check it out, qualified property or services. Here we mention you if these here certain employee discounts on the selling price of qualified property or services of their employer are excluded from the gross income. But now the question rises, what this is qualified product service is all about. That means in which the employee is performing certain kind of services, and their such services are purchased by in the ordinary course of business, and the employee has performed these services and purchased by the employee for his own use. But here is an important catch. We have already stipulated it will not form part of your gross income, but still there comes a restraint constant wherein the employee discount should not at all exceed. Here the word is, although they have used may not exceed, matlab. So there is a possibility as to whenever any kind of as such, if we talk about the change or so, so things are easy. So let's come to the main point. The main point is the employee discount may not exceed the gross profit percentage in normal offers by the employer or to the customers, and even 20% of the price offered to the customers in case of qualified services. So that means if you're giving any kind of services which comes within the purview of the business of the employer, so your as such, whatever discount you have availed will be confined only to 20% of the price already offered. Or the second condition is, so my dear students, here is an important catch. The terminology which has been incorporated over here is that it says or, not and. So what is the difference between the two? Whenever we say all right, the previous sentence, comma, space at. What does that mean? Obviously, now listen to me very carefully. That means either of the two conditions can be satisfied, either the second one or the first one or any other condition for which final confirmation can be given. It will, as such, not form part of your gross income or forms part of your gross income. Obviously, the second one, it will definitely form part of your gross income. Second condition is if the 20% of the price offered to given to the customers in case of qualified services. For example, if you are giving any kind of qualified services, which has already been stipulated. So 20% of the gross price to the customers, it has to be, it should not include or exceed beyond that. However, the discount must be available to all employees on any kind of discrimination basis, and this thing should be communicated by to you by our students as well. Then that's all for this session today. I was ought to cover one or two topics, and I'm feeling happy because there have been only 5 to 6 pages which will be covering let me give you another time for today, maybe around 10:15 or so, because today is Thursday, right? Yes, we'll meet by that time, 10:15 p.m.